Well, guys. Welcome back to Dwight Ibanks TV. Thank you guys for tuning in. I've been getting so many responses and feedback from the last and the first video that we dropped. This is episode 2 of the Inner Circle, and I have a special guest for you. As a matter of fact, all my guests are special, but this one is special because this is a close friend of mine, somebody who I know dearly close. We went to school together. She has progressed and has been doing well for herself. And I have some very interesting topics for you today. I want to introduce you guys to, like I said, a close friend of mine, Trevi Ann Thompson. She's an attorney at law in the state of Georgia, and she specializes in family-based immigration and also family law. Hello, Trevi Ann. Welcome to the Inner Circle.
Thank you for having me, Dwight.
You don't know. You don't know. I'm glad to have you as well because I wanted to have a certain type of discussion, and I figured you were the best person for it. Because immigration is, of course, a very important conversation to have. There's a lot of people who want information, and I believe that you are the best person for it. Before I even get into more so your side, when it comes down to immigration, so I know you are based in the state of Georgia.
That's correct.
When it comes down to immigration, is there any border or jurisdiction limits that you have?
No, and that's the amazing thing about practicing immigration law because it is federal. You can literally be an attorney in any of the states and practice from there. And with COVID, things have, opened things up virtually. So people are now accustomed to doing things remotely and not so much focusing on, I need to be in office to, deliver documents to attorneys and so forth. So you could be in Florida. And you're like myself, and COVID definitely has made things a lot easier for people to do things remotely. So yeah, you can practice immigration law.
Okay, perfect. So essentially somebody's in, I don't know, California, or somebody's in New York or Massachusetts, Florida, anywhere else, and they're looking for an attorney to help them with their process. You can actually help them.
Right, that's correct.
Perfect. So that's good to know. For people, let me give you a little bit of background. Let me tell you where me and Treviana come from. So funny enough, we went to college together, but we never knew each other in college. We went to come see together. We never knew each other. I used to see her. She probably see me. I get trouble.
Yeah.
But that's a different conversation. But we ended up in the same class. So in college, I studied business. Trevi you studied law, right?
So I did, I think it was called pre-university arts. So I did my associate degree in pre-university arts at Montego Bay Community College. So I believe you were doing business at the time. And we never kind of it was intertwined. I know that there were some degrees that did business and arts. And so we would have some business people or, law or social, what was it called? Sociology class. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, depending on what you were studying. I guess there were ADBS and there was BBA. So depending on how some of those programs overlapped, maybe some business student. My class is the closest we would have gotten at COMC in terms of studying probably was business law. And I'm not sure if that was something that was in your course.
Right. So we just did an overall law course, and we had that law class, but we never specialized in any business law or family law or anything of that nature.
Oh, okay.
So we have met.
Okay, that makes sense. But we saw each other. But funny enough, we ended up in the same class. So I switched from ADBS or business, and when I got to UTech, I studied law, and we ended up in the same class. And immediately we all became friends. It was a group of 3 or 4 of us.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So there was about a group of 3 or 4 of us, and I was, according to you guys, I was the only cool guy in the class. That's what they said to me. And I did air quotes. So if the other guys in the class are watching this, don't feel offended.
Yeah, and it wasn't a lot of you guys either. So it was just
True. That's true.
We come to you guys as the protectors of our group.
And I believe we did a good job.
Yeah.
But we became friends and we studied law. We finished UTech together. But you went on and you actually did the thing and you became a full-blown attorney.
Right.
Me, on the other hand, fall back in love with business, and I've been there.
Yeah.
Anyways, so let's take it a step back to originally where all of this started. Now, what high school did you go to?
So I went to Irwin High School in Montego Bay. Go Irwin Heights, strive for excellence, never yielding. Then I went on to Montego Bay Community College. Like I mentioned, I did an associate degree in pre-university arts. And funny enough, I don't have a story where, like the typical attorney, where I wanted to be a lawyer since I was 5 years old or anything of that nature. That was not my story.
What was your original thing?
So originally, I wanted to be like a singer. Then it
Sing it,
switched
Trevi.
to
I've heard you sing, sir. I've heard you sing, Trevi.
I can sing. I can be probably a backup singer.
Okay, all right, all right.
Maybe
I'll
not
give
a
you that.
main singer, but then it ranged from singer to dermatologist to pastry chef and to social worker, and it kind of stuck there even at the end of high school. So even going into ComC and literally doing the application, that's what was my main focus until after CXCs, the Caribbean examinations.
Council, I think.
Yeah, right. But council sound to yeah, would throw off a
I
lot
don't
of
know.
people. Yeah, but so I was going through the application for college with my sister, and of course, we would have gotten back. Well, I would have gotten back my CXC results and so forth. So I did subjects like Caribbean history, English literature, of course, English language, social studies, all the reading subjects basically. And my sister was like, "I think you should choose law as a course." I was like, "Okay, sure." But my main focus was still to be a social worker. And so when I went to ComC, I did law as one of my courses, and I fell in love with it. I love the whole analytical thinking, which was something I developed in high school doing all those reading courses, especially English literature. You really had to like do deep analysis of things that weren't, surface level. And so when I went to ComC, I did law and fell in love with it. And I was like, okay, maybe I should actually do this lawyer thing, right? And so after ComC, I applied to University of Technology and completed my bachelor's of law degree there, Western Campus.
Western Campus. You have to be specific,
Yeah, I
because
have to be specific because I don't want people to be like, "Oh, I never saw her in my class." But yeah, Western Campus, UTech.
it's funny because every time I mention to people, oh, I used to go UTech. Oh, this random person, this random name, and I was
And
like,
I'm
God,
like,
okay,
no,
I don't know.
it was a very small group of us in the Western Campus, which I loved.
I loved it actually.
Yeah, we were able to actually be friends and foster good relationships there, even with the lecturers and so forth. So yeah, it's I always tell people that my favorite law school experience was in fact in Jamaica. And after UTech, I migrated, and I had to put a pause on my studies, and then I applied to and got accepted into Emory University School of Law, which is here in Georgia. Yeah.
Nice, 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 nice. No, you are correct. I think we were able to form. I wouldn't call it just friends. It almost like became family.
Yeah.
Because I remember people coming to my house to study and sleep over. And note to self, I'll never do that again. Was it commercial law?
Yeah.
I almost failed commercial law because I did that. I had a couple people over, and we were studying, or that was the plan. And unfortunately for me, they got sidetracked in conversation. So, all right. So, confession. So everybody know this. We probably touch upon this somewhere in the conversation, but this is a confession. I never used to study, like study until probably 3 days before each exam.
Yeah, I do. I remember.
Okay, I never used to
Like you
study.
were in all of our group projects
Yes,
all throughout
yes,
our time at UTech, actually. Yeah. And we would we
yes.
would plan things and we would like, just add the white to this part. He'll
I was all over the place. I was all over the place. I was the school DJ. I was involved in sports. I was a part of the students' union. Somebody
Mhm.
all over the place. If it wasn't for Trevi and that group, quite a number of times, I would have probably failed some subjects.
Yeah.
So So yeah, I want you guys to understand how deep this friendship runs. Okay.
Mhm.
But I never used to study for exams until probably 2 or 3 days before the actual exam. And what made it work for me and why I end up with good grades is because of the fact that when I start, I don't stop until I actually. I'm not gonna say swat it because I'm a fast learner, so I never
Yeah.
used to swat. But I used to
Mhm.
read and understand word for word, for word, for word, for word. It's almost like I learn better under pressure.
Mm. Some
And
people are like that. Yeah.
that it never used to work for anybody. Sherry, you remember Sherry? Sherry?
Mhm.
Sherry said to me one time, she's like, I don't know how you do it. And I was like, to be honest, I don't know how I do it either, but it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they came over for the night and them start have conversations about man and woman and KFC and whatever, whatever, whatever. And I tried to study and I stayed up that night because after them gone sleep, I tried to stay up and study till like 4 o'clock in the morning. Got up, got to school like 6 something or 7 something. Tried to study again because I still didn't feel ready. Go in the exam, freaking out, and then man go blank. I kid you not.
Oh
Mm.
no.
My mind go blank. Like me just cannot think. I've never experienced that before. Me just cannot
Mhm.
remember. I remember it was you and somebody else in our class that was kind of looking at me because I was distracting because I was over there like there was a whole lot of movements and you guys like what the hell is wrong with you?
Mhm.
But luckily my coursework grade was high enough so I end up get like a C.
Mhm. Mhm. And
So
commercial law was not a walk in the park either, to be
but
honest.
I liked commercial law because I liked it and I feel like I would have done well in it
Mhm.
because I could not complete a single question. They were
Mhm.
just cases and principles that I forgot. And I
Yeah.
because my mind went blank, I just couldn't remember. And so I would have done well because if I
Mhm.
start it and not finish it and still get a C, it means that if I did
That's
finish, I have a
true. You
chance
could
to.
at least probably got like a B plus or something, you know. Yeah.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. So thanks again, Trevi. Um, so you came to the US. What
Mhm.
year? What year?
Ooh, 2015, so almost 10 years. Yeah.
Okay,
I
so you came
know.
pretty much you come right after school.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
literally right after school because I completed UTech 2015.
yeah,
Yeah. So right after the exams in May.
and you did
That's
drop off of the
fine.
map for a little while too, so we couldn't
Mhm.
find you. Yes.
Really?
So when right after you leave school, we couldn't find you for like a couple months. Like we just couldn't find Trevi Ann, and then we
Oh
realized, oh,
wow.
Trevi Ann was
Where is
living
Trevi
in
Ann?
Trevi Ann is living in the US. But you came here,
Mhm.
family based.
Yeah, so my first introduction to I guess law was during
Uh-huh.
my internship at UTech. You remember when we had to do
Oh,
those like hours? I think we were
yes.
supposed to, yeah, it was internship coupled with like a paper. And I did my internship at the family law court in Montego Bay. And so I was like, okay, I think this is what I want to do, which was family law. So everything from there, even migrating here to the US, there was a time where, and I guess we'll get into it further on, where I wasn't able to work because I was in the process of adjusting my status. So
Gotcha.
there was a courthouse close to me, and I just volunteered with their temporary restraining order unit, and that's when because I also wanted to get my feet in the U.S. legal system too, to
Yeah.
see what's different, what's similar, things of that nature. And it wasn't completely foreign to me because it's something that I kind of learned throughout my internship in Jamaica.
Okay.
But also kind of familiarizing myself with how things work in the US. And from there, I built from there. When I was attending Emory Law, I did my internships with like family law firms and so forth. And my first legal job was as a family law attorney. Yeah.
Nice. So I
Mhm.
remember, I'm gonna drag your memory a little bit. In family
Yeah.
law, I remember one of the things about family law, and I think this is why for a lot of people this is one of the hardest
Yes.
types of
Yes.
law to study because I
Yes.
feel like with a lot of the cases there is a lot of emotional attachments.
Yeah.
I remember there was one particular case that we were studying, and this is at UTech. Now, I'm not gonna call the person by name, but I remember when we were having a lecture, this conversation was, I think it was about sexual assaults and the R word and thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one of the conversations that we were having, and the lecturer was arguing it from strictly from a point of view of law and what the law says, and
Yeah.
right and wrong and whatever, based on the language of the law. And I remember it became a big thing because that a particular classmate felt some type of way like this was crazy. How can you look at it from that point of view? And he said,
Mm-hmm.
well, the language of the law says this and that. Now, how do you, as a family attorney, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
how do you separate the emotions and how you feel and how you think this should happen from the facts?
Yeah, and that's the thing about being a lawyer, right? Is you may feel some sort of sensitivity towards certain topics, but you can't interject them in your
Right.
cases. I know with family law in particular, like you mentioned, it definitely takes a special type of person to do that line of work because you also don't want to be um for a lack of a better word, detached from the case. You
Right.
also want to ensure that your clients feel as if they're being heard and that they have a voice, and you also want to make sure that you advocate for them thoroughly, based on the sensitivity of the case. But there are some instances where it's just like, this is not necessarily a legal matter. For instance, in family law cases, I've had to have hard talks with clients who, they're going through a divorce, and they would want the non-custodial parent to, be more involved with the child or children. And they would call all sorts of hours, like, he didn't come today or she didn't come today, and I would love for them to be at this dance recital or something,
Yeah.
but it's not a legal issue. I can't help with that. And so those are the little nuances, or your difficulties of having those cases. As much as you understand the situation, it's not something you can legally help with because you can't
Yeah.
make somebody a better parent.
That's true.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And I can definitely see that because family law includes a lot of, or I guess the issues that surround family law typically includes a lot of, I feel this type of way, you feel this type of way,
Mhm.
and people typically feel like there's legal recourse, but there really isn't.
Yeah.
So I can definitely understand that. I mean, let's talk about immigration, for example, now, because that's
Mhm.
what you specialize in right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Let's start with the most popular way people actually seek to change their status, which is
Mhm.
one, whether it's a case where they get married in Jamaica and
Yeah.
then them get filed for,
Mhm.
or it's a case where they come to the US, get married, or this is probably the most popular, is them come to the US, run off,
Mhm.
and then seek to change their status.
Yeah.
Now, which one? I've always wanted to know this, I guess. Based on the US's standards or status or whatever, what is the perfect way for the US for you to get your, or easiest way to get your status adjusted?
Honestly, I would say it depends on the tolerance and patience of the applicant. So, for
Gotcha.
example, if you were to file from your home country, um, it's a less tedious process because you don't have the adjustment of status form that you have to complete. But it can take a little bit longer. However, you're in your home country, so you're able to work, still spend time with friends and family, sort of put things in motion for your transition, things of that nature, versus when you come here and you overstay your visa, you're without status. You're basically an alien, which is what they refer to,
Yes.
undocumented, even when you are, in fact, documented as an alien, right? You have an alien number
Yes.
that you get. And so, given that you're a lot longer, and depending on where you were in your home country, for example, you were going to school or you had this really nice job, and to come here and have to sit and wait, it can be a daunting process. It can be a highly emotional, waiting period for you too. And depending on, how things go, if you were able to actually fill out those forms properly, um,
Mm, mm.
that's another thing. because it can result in another waiting period. So you're there
Yep.
waiting, thinking that you submitted the forms and everything should be fine, and then you get a letter from immigration like, we need more of this, and that's another waiting period. So I think it depends on the tolerance level of the applicant. I know some persons prefer to do it from their home country. So even though it may take a little bit longer, at least they're able to work and so forth, resume life basically while they wait on the process versus coming here and having to wait, for however long.
That's true. I mean, I can definitely see that. I think, as you mentioned, I think it's definitely based on the tolerance level.
Mm-hmm.
If you are, and this is particularly in the event of somebody getting married. That's
Yeah.
that's what we're specifically talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, somebody who is in their home country and decides, you know what, let me get married, whether in Jamaica or you get married here, but essentially you're filing from your home country.
Yeah.
That I'm assuming is the less stressful process. It's not
Right.
the shortest process, but it's the less
Right.
stressful process.
Right.
Now, do you have like average processing time on on an application of that nature?
Yeah. I think COVID made things a little bit different, but I know in some cases, for example, if you're filing from your home country, it can take 2 years or longer.
Okay.
But it is sort of a shorter process because, like I said, it's less forms. You submit like your I-30, an affidavit of support and things of that nature, and you get called to do the interview. You do your medical before then, and you essentially walk through those steps. But versus filing from the US, it may be a little bit shorter, but you have more forms and of course more expensive.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, it really depends on the person, how long you can wait. And
That's
so
true.
forth. Yeah.
That's true. And also too, I guess the next question is, because I know, so when you live here or when you
Mm-hmm.
come to America and you
Mm-hmm.
file, they give you a conditional approval.
Mm-hmm.
When you
Well,
when they
depending
file for you,
depending on how long the parties have been married.
yeah.
So if they've been married and they went through the process and you got your green card under 2 years, um, you do get a conditional green card. If it's more than
Oh,
that, after you've been married for 2+ years, then you are likely to get your 10+ green
so
card.
it's not
Yeah.
guaranteed.
Yeah. Nothing is guaranteed with immigration.
Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So if you live here
Hmm.
or if you're in the US, you get married and you try to change your status in the US, if you are married for under 2 years,
Hmm.
conditional. If you are married for over 2 years, it's likely for you to get unconditional.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So just so people watching this that don't know, understand what we're saying is under 2 years, you get a 2 year green card. That is conditional. The condition is you need to be still married
Hmm.
after the 2 year, and they can prove that it wasn't any form of marriage fraud,
Right. A bona fide marriage.
a
Hmm.
bona fide marriage. That's the term I'm looking
Hmm.
for.
Hmm.
Um, After 2 years, then you get the unconditional, which is what we call a 10 year.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
And also, what is most important with the conditional green cards too is that you can't wait until the expiration date of the actual green card. You have to make sure that you're putting things in place to get that 10 year, I think 90 days, at least 90 days before the expiration of
Really?
your green card. So that's also important to know.
Okay. I did not know
Mhm.
that. Luckily for me, I was proactive when my time came.
Yeah.
So that doesn't apply to me anymore. But
Hmm.
that makes sense because why
Yeah.
would you wait? Because they need
Hmm.
to, I mean, what they're doing now is they're sending out extension letters because it
Hmm.
takes a while. And that
Hmm.
extension letter allows you to pretty much operate like you have a valid green card.
Right. That's correct. Hmm.
Okay. So somebody
Which is
living
called the
in,
I-551 that allows you to travel and so forth. Yeah.
yes,
Hmm.
yes, yes, yes. I'm glad to know them because I don't know them. By the way, they sent me like 3 or 4 extension letters.
Yeah, especially during COVID because they weren't scheduling any appointments, and so you had people who were coming up on the expiration of their green cards, and they had nothing set in place, no interviews, no communication, and so they had to try to schedule like info passes. That's like going into the office to say, "Hey, this is what is happening," and they would stamp them in their passport, the I-551, where they would be able to travel and things of that nature. So yeah, yeah, that's
Interesting.
yeah.
No, they sent me up to a 4-year extension,
Mm-hmm.
which expired, and then I didn't do an interview for my tenure. I didn't know an
Mm.
interview.
Yeah.
They just mailed it to me. They asked me for more information, like on my
Mm-hmm.
daughter, stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and they took it, and then they
Mm-hmm.
sent me my green card. It just showed up one day. Um,
That's great.
yeah, but I know there's a process that goes into that. Typical, there's a second interview, and they want to now see inside your relationship through not necessarily through a microscope, but they take a much closer look at that point.
Yeah.
Um, which I didn't do it because I guess they were able to find enough information that they didn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so when you file from your home country,
Mm-hmm.
when you get to the US, so let's say it takes a 2-year period.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to the US, how does that transition look compared to when you get naturalized here?
I think it's a beautiful transition. So you come here, you don't have to worry. You basically get like a welcome to the US. Like you would have gone through your interview in your home country. You come here, you get like a packet, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
which welcomes you to the country. Then a few months, you're getting like your social. You're able to work and do things as a normal resident of the United States.
In no
So
time.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. I
Yeah.
mean, it's kind of scary when you hear some stories where some people have in terms of their experience coming here. But you are correct. I've never heard somebody who get filed from their home country come here and have these experiences because they come essentially into the country and them get them green cards show up in the
Yeah.
mail a couple weeks, some as soon as a week or 2 weeks later,
Hmm.
and some might take a little bit longer. But I mean, if for example, if you get married in your home country and they're
Hmm.
filing for you and you spend another year or two, and
Hmm.
again, this is the way I'm thinking is that if you're
Hmm.
down there for another year or two, you would be down there working, you're down there make preparation for migrate. Therefore,
Hmm.
when the time comes for you to migrate, you can sell what you need to sell and bring all that cash.
Exactly. And you would have
So
probably saved a bunch. Yeah. Hmm.
that makes sense. No, so
Yeah.
I would in the way I'm thinking that's priority number one for the US
Yeah.
because they would have maximum control over and would have all the information about you and your intention coming to the US beforehand.
Hmm.
Option number two is if you come to the US and let's say within 3 months you come to the US and you find the love of your life and you decide, so we're gonna get married. This is option number two because that's when you're now going to have to change your status.
Hmm.
Um, so
Hmm.
and then option number three is let again, this is probably the person who needs the most information right now is the person who come to the US on like a visitor visa, or they come here to
Hmm.
work, or they come here to school and then
Hmm.
decide I'm not going back. Right? Um, so for somebody who has gotten married or whatever it is,
Hmm.
um, in the US because them run off and overstay them visa, what's that process looking like?
So let's say you enter the US legally and you overstay your visa. The steps are similar to applying to that in your home country. You file your I-130 or whichever one is appropriate for your situation. There are instances where you can file for I-130 or I-130A, sorry. So it depends on your circumstances. But in addition to that, you would have to also file an I-485, which is the adjustment of status. And it sounds like just like what it is. Like I was a visitor and now I'm transitioning to a permanent resident. So that is why it is important for you to file that form also.
Gotcha.
And so, assuming that you've filled out the forms correctly, um, USCIS will communicate to you if there is anything additional needed. But what it will look like is doing your biometric test, which is like the fingerprinting and stuff like that. So you can, to go along with their application. And also, most importantly, so it's three forms: the I-130 or the I-130A, the 485, which adjusts your status, and the 765 to actually get your work permit. So
Gotcha.
all those things are needed because you need to work and you need to be able to stay here. So
Good point.
yeah, so in most cases, the work permit and so forth will come before you've even been granted like an interview for the adjustment of status part. Because they understand too that you want to work while you wait, to be adjusted, properly adjusted. As it relates to the timeline of that, of getting that, it can
Oh,
be, yeah, it can be 6 months, it can be longer than that, or even shorter than that. I think it depends.
yeah.
It depends. Yeah.
I've seen short ones. One of my brethren, he got his work. He got his green card in like 3 months
Mm,
before he could get his actual work permit. He got his green card.
right,
Me
right.
on
So
the other hand,
there's
it took me about a year.
yes, exactly. And you could be in the same state, same city. It can really vary. Like you
I
can't
learned
repeat.
that I
Yeah,
learned that through him because I filed before him. I filed before him. And
right.
within 3 months, he got his green card in
Yeah,
hand. I said, you know me have good heart. And you know how hard it be enough for bad man?
right.
Oh, God. But
Oh,
they hear me, I say,
okay.
yo, all right, cool. I'm a file. The person come and me tell him how to do it and him ask me how to get this and get that. All right, cool, do that. I'm file within 3 months. Now, the difference between, and this is a good segue because the difference between me and him, and I don't know if this is actually what happened. I did my application myself. I say, I'm a study law. I did it
See?
myself. No, that's what I said. This is the perfect segue. No,
Yeah.
he was like, I don't care to do it. Let me find an attorney. Had an attorney file it, and within 3 months, he had his green card in hand. Now, my question to you is,
Mm-hmm.
what's the benefit of using an attorney versus doing it yourself?
Perfect. So the major and the obvious difference is more than likely the person filling out the application is not an attorney. Right? You can always do cases pro se and stuff like that. Everyone has the right to represent themselves and so forth.
Right.
But there are certain nuances in the forms that you probably aren't accustomed to. It's a side by side page um, that has a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people aren't familiar with certain terms on those forms, what to look for, and what to even, what are the supporting documents that are needed with those forms. And so while you can be able to do it by yourself, just know that, be wary of the fact that this could also delay your process, because if you aren't familiar with how to do them, it can delay your case. And it may be that you're there waiting to hear back from USCIS, and then the notice that you get is, we need more of this.
Yeah.
You haven't
And
provided this.
yeah, and your entire case at that point is on pause.
Right, exactly. And we all know that they do take some time to communicate back to you.
Oh my God.
Versus when you have a lawyer, they know what to look for. They know what evidence they should provide. They know how to complete the forms. They're well versed in this area. And so rather than waiting to hear back to submit evidence, it could be a straight shot. And that is why it's
Yeah.
always important to have an attorney on whatever scale to at least complete or help you with those forms. And especially with the adjustment of status cases, because you are not a resident of the United States, say you are in a marriage, there are certain things that you essentially cannot provide. And so you have to get creative, and it takes an attorney to do that. So for
Yeah.
instance, in a lot of cases, immigration would look for, are you on the lease? Of course, you can't be on the lease because you're not a resident. You're not
Exactly.
able to
Yeah.
provide certain information to be on that lease. And so you do
Social
have to get
security.
creative, like, okay, yeah, things of that nature. And so you have to be creative. Oh, we did multiple visits back and forth when I was in my home country. So you would need plane tickets. Of course, the obvious pictures, but I feel like immigration has surpassed that, where okay, we know that you can go out and take pictures at Red Lobster with your cousin and things like that. Show me and tell me more. How are you intertwined and in a bona fide marriage as spouses? And
Yeah.
so you have to get really creative. Like the wedding ring and the receipts from that. We went to the movies, our names are on this, things of that nature. So attorney to build those cases versus an applicant that doesn't really know much, think it's, and using Google, they'll come and tell you, the Google lawyers, submitting picture and they think that's it. And providing letters from, your cousin and this and that. I was there at the wedding and, things of that nature. And while, affidavits are good, you need more because, anybody can say anything and they know not
Yeah.
to. So
They're not
yeah,
they're not stupid.
yeah.
They're
So
not
the
stupid.
more the merrier. Yeah.
And what I like to say to a lot of people quite often, I have to have this conversation. I say, look, guys, okay, we know as Jamaicans, we know a lot of Jamaicans that do try to adjust your status. But you also have to bear in mind that there are probably like 100 other countries coming into the US.
Yeah.
What I mean by saying all this is that they've seen it all. Every single day they're getting these type of applications, and we are not the only creative people in the country. I'm sorry, in the world. We're not the only creative people in the world, and therefore you're talking about South Americans of all over South Americans coming in. You're talking Europeans, you're talking Africans, you're talking Asians, Australia. A bunch of people are coming into the US every single day, and a bunch of applications are being submitted, which means the thing that you feel like, oh, them not got access. If me tell them, so my cousin do it, they've seen it all. They're gonna ask for more.
Yeah. And you touched on a very important part I wanted to address. I'm losing my train of thought.
Yeah, that happened to me all the time too. Annoying.
But even with the bona fide marriage, you are of the impression, it's not enough for you to be of the impression that, okay, I'm in a legit marriage. There's not much, I have to do. No, there's so much you're supposed to do, right? Being an immigrant in and of itself is a privilege. And so you have to make your case. And that's another thing that a lot of people don't take into consideration, that because I'm not in a courtroom and I'm not on trial for like the M word or something serious or one of those heinous crimes that I'm fine. I can just submit the forms, provide these pictures and call it a day. But it's so much more to that. And that is why it's always important at the very least to consult an attorney.
And timeline? Does it help with timeline?
Maybe it'll come back when we start speaking about it.
It'll come back. It'll come back for sure. It'll come back. No, let's say, so I'm looking to adjust my status. I reach out to you as an attorney. Does it explicitly help with timeline as opposed to the nuances of helping out with certain documents and knowing exactly what to set up? Is it a case where the USCIS see, okay, this one was filed by an attorney because it's coming from the law office off, or anything? Does it explicitly help with timeline, or is it just the fact that they're like, okay, it's coming from an attorney's office, we know everything is there? Or it's more not explicit but implied.
There are some yeah. I'm sorry.
I'm saying maybe not explicit but implied.
Right, maybe impliedly. So I will say there are some perks to having an attorney that the immigration officials appreciate, because we as attorneys do have to file like a G28 form. And normally with the preparation of it coming from a lawyer, I would say it's more presentable because we provide like an index of what to look for, and it's packaged differently. And also, in instances, for example, taking it back to like during COVID times, there were instances where the lawyers could in fact get like appointments for you to actually go into the office to say, hey, my green card is about to expire. Can I get something until I'm in the waiting period? That versus you who, like you're a pro se applicant, pro se meaning unrepresented.
Yeah.
You're trying to reach out to them via phone call, and it's just like
you want everybody else.
Yeah.
Your whole time is 60 minutes.
So I will say it's helpful to have an attorney. Maybe I don't know. I'm not in the minds of the officials, but there are perks to having an attorney on your case. I will say that. Yeah, because we've
Okay.
made the connections and so forth, and we know what to do to get around certain things that aren't
Repetition.
necessarily you know public or publicized. Yes, I will say that.
Repetition does help because you know what to do. It's that
Yeah.
simple.
Hmm.
As let me give you an example. How is it complicated to change your oil on a car? Maybe not, depending on
Yeah.
the point of. For me, it is because I'm not that skilled. But let's
Hmm.
say I go on YouTube and I learn it. It's gonna take me probably 2 hours just to figure it out. While somebody who
Yeah.
does it every single day probably get
Hmm.
it done in 20 minutes. So
Hmm.
repetition does help.
Not to
Um,
mention the fact that some of those YouTube videos tend to leave out key stuff.
oh yeah,
Like,
for
have you
sure.
ever tried to use a YouTube video to figure something out, and you're like, but they didn't mention this part, and you ask somebody, oh, like you would see that they skipped a step, So that's because of the
Yeah, and then
technology.
there's variation sometime in the product and the model. So them forget to mention
Right,
the model.
right,
This, but it gets complicated. But so
yeah.
it definitely helps to have an attorney. Now,
Mm.
let's say let's become a little, let's take it to the dark side now a little bit. Let's say somebody, I don't know, let's say them fake the marriage or whatever, or they have been found to have don't have a bona fide marriage. Let me
Okay,
just
let's
put it
go
that way.
there.
Yeah, let's go there. So let's say that they go through the marriage medium and the marriage is not bona fide. What does the USCIS do as a course of action, and what options
Mhm.
do you have?
Oh, which I remember my train of thought now. So to answer your question first, they will send a notice to say that, hey, if you don't get back to me in time, this is what is going to happen. We're going to deny you or deport you in some cases, things of that nature. And they'll specifically outline too, in most cases, why they are denying your application. And so
Okay.
oftentimes you will have to file what is the I-290B, which is like a motion to appeal this decision. And based on the reason for denial, address that reason. Now, some people, and this is why it's also important to have an attorney, they will try to specifically address that situation that the immigration informed them about. Whereas you go a little bit further into it and you realize, as the attorney, because that is when they most times see the attorney after the fact, you
Yes.
realize as the attorney that the evidence that you submitted was also weak. So yes, this
Mm.
may be an issue, and you could specifically address that issue, but that along with your overall packet is still weak.
Yeah.
So they can still deny you after you've addressed that issue. And so I've seen in cases, or I've done in cases where, okay, they're denying it for this specific reason. For example, I had a case where the individual was filing for their father and was denying it because they didn't provide that this person is in fact your father. So a DNA test was needed and results from that DNA test, right? So you would do things of that nature, and you had to provide additional evidence to support those things. And that was my point originally, where there's social media posts, things of that nature. You want to show that relationship that you have, and the same goes for marriages.
Gotcha.
In cases where the medical packet was something wonky happened with the medical packet, and so this was a marriage, and taking a look at the evidence, there was only pictures and that nature submitted, whereas I needed to submit, like, you know I needed to get creative to submit evidence of a bona fide marriage, a good faith marriage. And so yes, we could address the issue with the medical packet, but we also needed to bolster your good faith marriage as well.
Yeah.
And so a lot of applicants aren't understanding of that part too. Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense because I can
And
see
they
that.
are
I mean,
watching.
and they are a
They
100%.
are watching. So if you think that you can, let me say, not provide enough to show, or provide sufficient evidence for the bona fide marriage, but we're taking a look at your social media and you post everything else except your spouse
Except that.
and
See,
except your
I'm glad you
wedding
said that.
pictures. So how bona fide
Yeah.
is this marriage if you have no evidence of something that you are actively on? And so social media is, a part of that as well. And they're asking for things of that nature. So they're very hip to what's going on too.
Yes, yes. I mean, I can tell you this. I'll tell you my story, and that's perfect when you said that, because I would say that my interview was probably one of the easiest interview. I've never heard another story like mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about when I'm doing my 2 years, when I was getting my two
Mm-hmm.
years, my conditional. Um, we went to the office, the immigrant, whatever office it was, I can't remember. This was in Alabama, at the time.
Yeah,
And
that's
when
another
I
thing
got
too.
there,
Yeah, you have to go out of state
yes,
in some cases.
yes. So when I got there, and them call my name or Dwight Bank. So for people that don't know, I got migrated through family based, got married,
Mm-hmm.
yada yada yada. When I got there and I went inside the office, matter of fact, as me I walked through the door, before the guy closed the door, he's like, you're already approved, right? I'm like, huh? What? What are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, you're already approved. The only thing that we needed was you to show up here with your wife.
Yeah,
And I was like, how is that possible?
yeah,
And like he was like, do you want to leave me some documents? You can if you want. If you
yeah.
don't want to, then you're
Mm-hmm.
good. Your green card will be in the mail in a week or so. I was like, I already got the extra step and print out all them pictures and all them for me. Take them, because me not bring them back.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I realized at that point in time is like, they do their research
Mm-hmm.
and they know what's going on. And that's probably why they were able to just send me the green card in the mail as well, because they
Right,
do
that
their
is
own
true.
research.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
for people that don't know, if you decide to be private about your life, then they're gonna probably require you to present a lot more information.
That is the thing. So the whole private spouse and things of that nature that would have worked, otherwise is not so much the case in like immigration cases, because
Yep.
they are checking your social media to see if you
Yeah.
are posting about your spouse, about the
And if you
birthdays
think them
that you're
can't find
sending
you,
pictures about the wedding anniversary that you're sending pictures about. Are you posting that? Are you sharing it with your friends and family? Are you,
this is true.
having the happiest marriage of all marriages, but you're not showing it on the public on social media? They are, and of course it's not a, end all be all thing, but it's coupled with other things.
Yes.
And so if you have like a weak packet, and also in that pool of things, you're not you're active on social media otherwise, but you're not posting about your marriage, then it is
Yeah.
going to be questionable.
Yes. Yes. Even if you're not if you simply oppose the person head back, it applies, because them can,
Yeah, right,
them can do the maths.
right,
The maths
right,
is maths. You
right,
know what I mean?
right.
But them
Or
need to
if
see
you're posting
something.
somebody else, that can be tricky too.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. For sure. So
Yeah.
I mean, just know that these people are paying attention. I don't care how private you make your account. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're talking about the US government here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We're talking about the US government. They will find a way to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that they get information that they need.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, now let's again, me I go play devil's advocate. So me I go
Mm-hmm.
bring it to the dark side again. Now let's say somebody come here, whether it's a case where they were married in their home country and then they came here, or
Mm-hmm.
it's a case where no, that don't really apply to them. Let's more so focus on the people who run off, or the people who come to America, get married, and are adjusting their status. Let's focus on them. Now let's use this scenario. They have gotten married and then put in them papers, and
Mm-hmm.
they are in an abusive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens quite often is that the spouse, male or female,
Mm-hmm.
uses that to control them and take
Yeah.
advantage of them,
Yeah.
treat them any type of way, and
Yeah.
say, yo, if you do this, me not give you a green card, me I call them and cancel it, me I call ice
Yeah.
on you.
Yeah.
Or any abuse of any sort, which by the way, we burn fire upon any form of abuse, verbal or
Mm-hmm.
physical,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
in those cases where
Mm-hmm.
the threat of never cancel your green card is hanging over your head,
Yeah.
what options does the individual have.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of immigrants, when they're making a transition, especially if they're physically present in the US, they feel as if they have to endure certain types of abuse because, I came here with a plan where I fell in love and, I thought this was going to be it. And before you know it, you're in an abusive relationship and you're not able to, quite frankly, up and leave and go back to your home country because you've sort of like overstayed your visa and, how that translates in their head that, they've essentially ruined things. Right. But
Right.
there is something that you can do which is called VAWA. So it's Violence Against Women Act. You can file that, which is like a self petition. And I know it does have women in there, but you can apply regardless of gender. So a
Oh,
male,
okay.
female, you can apply. And it's a self petitioning form, so to speak. So there are certain requirements that you have to um, fulfill to be able to do that. And it's for people who are in an abusive relationship and don't think that abuse is just merely for physical abuse. It can be emotional. Dwight, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay. It can be emotional, verbal, financial, which is also another big part of it because you're undocumented, you're not able to work. So don't think it's just, physical abuse. So, people can essentially file that. It would be in cases where you've actually put in an application to adjust your status. And of course, you have to be physically present in the US because, I mean, if you're in your home country and you haven't put in anything yet, you can. This wouldn't apply to you, right?
Good point. Good
So,
point.
right. So, and don't be scared by, doing that because it doesn't involve your spouse or the abuser, so to speak. You don't have to
So the
communicate with
spouse,
them.
then if you sign on anything or anything like that.
You don't need them to sign on
Okay.
anything. Like I said, it's a self-petition process. You are the one communicating, and I guess by virtue of an attorney to communicating to you SCIS and building your case without the need for that spouse, and also not just spouses, but even parents or whoever is filing for you that is the US citizen or the legal resident. So it can vary from spouse, a child, a parent. Yeah, so you can submit that application. And it's a lot more common than you think, unfortunately, because there are people who are out there that, have changed since the process when they realize it's when the sort of like the abused become the abuser and they realize, give somebody power and what they do with it shows them their true character. And so a
I
lot of
agree.
people use that as a tool to, not help them with the process or they're dragging their feet with the process and they're in control of all the money because they know that they're not able to work. And they are seeking the help of them to be adjusted in this new country. And it's even more sad for people who um, English isn't their first language, and so
Oh
that
yeah,
takes a
that's
lot
true.
more navigation, which is also helpful by seeking an attorney because they can, advocate for you on your behalf. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Mhm.
I was gonna ask because you said VAWA and then you said violence against women. I was like, wait,
Yeah.
so is there a VAMA or something like that? Violence
Right.
Against Men
They
Act. Yeah,
perhaps
but
should change the name.
no, but I
Yeah.
mean that makes sense because I've
Mhm.
seen and heard so many horror stories, where somebody come here and them reach over here and then after, let's say the honeymoon period of maybe a week or
Yeah.
two of you're oh you're
Yeah.
new, it's so
Yeah.
excited to have you here
Yeah.
to
I would even move it a bit further because they are aware of the fact that you have 6 months in this country. So that whole facade may be longer than 2 weeks, and it may be the fourth or the fifth or the 6 month or whenever that lapses. It's like, okay, it's go time now,
yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's good to know. That's good to know.
Mhm.
So somebody who comes here in the country ends up in an abusive relationship. Matter of fact, from the sound of it all, if you are not that verse, seek an attorney.
I
If
would
you
say
are
that.
verse, once you have the means, I would say, don't do like me, because my process took a lot longer than it could have, because they sent me multiple requests for information, affidavits, yada yada yada. And I ended up having put the project on, not put the project. They put the entire case on hold just to be
Mm-hmm.
able to get the information that they're requesting from me. Matter of
Mm-hmm.
fact, they sent me my entire packet back, my
Mm-hmm.
entire packet,
Mm-hmm.
because I had started the application and then we never submitted immediately and the form expired.
Mm-hmm. That's another
So
thing too.
yeah, painful.
They change their forms frequently. You have to make sure that you are using the correct forms and not just typing in Google like how to get a green card, and it's
Yeah,
a form from 2007. They're not using that anymore.
yeah.
Yeah,
I learned the hard way. I
yeah.
learned the hard way. Now, right now, there's a lot that's happening right now when it comes on to immigration, and there's a lot of changes pending. When it comes on to somebody who, and I know we're not gonna really, we don't have a direct border, like a physical border with the US. So much
Mhm.
Jamaicans not gonna necessarily have this conversation unless them find another way in. But for
Yeah.
people who have crossed the border illegally, right?
Mhm.
I was told, and I listened to a couple of other attorneys, and I learned through them, I didn't research it myself, that for those individuals, they don't have a lot of options as it relates to being naturalized.
Mhm. Right.
Or they cannot get naturalized through the regular medium for somebody who crossed the border legally.
Mhm.
Um, Random question. Is it true? Well, not random. Is it true that somebody who crossed the border illegally and is seeking to get naturalized, they have to go back to their home country and then cross the border back as a part of the process in order to get that stamp in your passport to say I crossed the border legally? Is that how it works,
Mhm.
or it's just not possible?
Um, given that I'm more so versed in family-based
Yeah.
immigration, I don't believe that is the case because you do have, people who have attained their green card through being an asylum seeker.
Okay. Okay.
So there may be other categories outside of family-based immigration that would apply to them. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily think they would have to go back to their home country, but versus being here and doing the or applying under the category that fits their situation. So I don't think that and that's the thing with immigration too. Once you're here, there are different categories that may apply to you, where you can adjust your status or become a green card holder and so forth. But just thinking about the public policy of it all, if you're able to go back to your home country, then it's likely that it could be a closed case. There's nothing
Yeah.
for you to necessarily advocate for. Or apply for if it is that similar to people who have overstayed their visa. Many
Mm.
of them tend to be here until they're able to adjust their status because they know if they go back home it could be much more, not saying that there's nothing available for you, but it could be much more difficult for you to you know become a green card holder after that. I've seen cases where people were on student visas and
Ay,
they
ay,
just
ay.
weren't able to get sponsorship through their employer, which is also another route that people could take. They
Yeah.
weren't able to get a sponsorship from their employer, and so they had to go back to their home country. And by then, their tourist visa would have lapsed, and they went to, reapply for their tourist visa, and they were denied because they are not the same type of visas. You are
Yeah.
visa and now you're applying for a tourist visa. The application process and the requirements and so forth are vastly different.
Understood.
Also wanting to go back to the whole conversation about the VAWA.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you are petitioning for yourself, like you said, it would be highly recommended to seek the advice and the help of an attorney because there are certain supporting documents like as if without the abuse that you would have to provide to show that in truth and in fact that you are in this unfortunate situation. And so this can be police reports, affidavits from family members, pictures, text messages, and I know in many cases people are, afraid or maybe unlikely to report the abuse to a police, to a go to the police station to get a report and things of that nature, given the sensitivity, because it is in fact your spouse, and the immigration takes that into consideration. Like, a lot of people are going to be hesitant to call the police on their spouse versus an intruder, right? This is somebody who you have a relationship with and perhaps kids with, right?
True.
And so don't think that because you don't have a police report that you don't have a case, or have you're not, this doesn't apply to you. There are other things that can be put in place to help with that petition. So I will stress it's very highly important to get an attorney, because that's another creative process.
Yeah. And you have the ability as the attorney to look at the evidence and to say, okay, let's add this, let's take away that, stuff of that nature, because you know what they're looking for. And also, I mean, essentially, if you are in an abusive relationship of whatever sort, verbal or physical, I would say at that point in time, I mean, I know somebody who was going through something of that nature, and they started to document. So whenever there were arguments that were abusive, or conversations or text message, they would do screenshots, they would take pictures, and they would record. And they would just hold on to that in the event of, okay, if I need to, I have the evidence. So just a heads up. Now, just to kind of wrap it all up, you are physically located in the state of Georgia, right?
Yes, I am.
Do you mind giving us some information as it relates to, like, for example, how we get in touch with you? So let's say somebody watching this needs some legal advice, or they're in fact looking for an attorney to help them with their immigration case, or anything family based. How do they get in touch with you? Phone number, email, law office number, whatever.
Yeah. So I have a legal consulting business that's called a la carte legal service. And the reason for that name is, throughout being an attorney, I realized that there are some people who tend to represent themselves that do need a little bit of more hand holding, maybe not necessarily an attorney for the long haul, but in limited cases where, for instance, in immigration, I need help with the forms or building my case. I might not necessarily need you for the entirety of the case, or even have the wherewithal to have you as an attorney for the entirety of the case. But I do need legal eyes on the forms and how to prepare, certain things, and have the documents and stuff in place to have a smooth process. And it's very important at the initial stages. So I created that business around, immigrants looking for that sort of, help and legal advice, as well as family law pro se applicants here in Georgia who are just in need of an attorney to help with the uncontested divorce. Which also goes into the VAWA cases too. Most times they are looking to do uncontested divorces and then start their process from there. So it's a la carte legal service. And I can be reached at consult at alacarteservices.com. And it's ALACARTELEGAL service. Phone number. Do I have a number? Okay, so the phone number is 469-673-0312. That's 469-673-0312. And you can schedule your booking, whether 15 minutes, 30 minutes, up to an hour for consultation, just so that we can be acquainted with your case and, discuss next steps and what the process looks like. Yeah,
exactly. And just to kind of tie into what she just said, for a lot of legal cases and law in general, it's very specific. Cases are unique. So this is just general information. This is by no means legal advice.
It is not legal advice. I know I'm an attorney, but it's not illegal advice, because each case is judged on its own merit. And like Dwight said in his example, he applied before his friend, and his friend was able to get through on a shorter basis, even though Dwight had applied way before that. So it depends on each person's particular case. And don't be that person to say, well, hey, my cousin did it and they did this and they put in that may not necessarily apply to you. So
do the right thing. Right. Do the right thing, man. Do the right thing, man. No matter the foolishness. One thing I learned, don't cheap it out. Don't cheap it out. If you have the means, if you have the means, do it the right way because it is so much less stressful.
Yeah.
All right.
And one thing about our business too, we offer flat fees. And so you're not necessarily charged by the hour. We give you a flat fee, and we have payment plans in place for you that can be helppful where it applies. Especially since we know that some people are in situations where they can't, they're not working and they may have to have the help of a family member or something like that. So yeah, that's one of our unique services that we offer, flat fees as well.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And I want to end this by saying, Trevi, I am so proud of you.
Oh,
I love. You're welcome. You're welcome because I love when my friends are winning. By the way, wait. Are you? It's frozen. Sorry, guys. So we had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we figured it out. And it's funny because the technical difficulty come at the end of the video,
at the very end.
At the very end, which is good. But I want to say thank you again for coming on, Trevi. I am super proud of you. You've grown a lot. And I hope that all of us actually, and I know all of us will actually, whether from a near or from afar, will be actually looking at the growth that you will have. And I know a la carte will grow to higher heights. Guys, I highly recommend if you have any issues, when you're looking to change your status or something of the sort, contact Trevi Ann at the contact information. I will drop it in the description below. I will put it on screen for much, when she talks, so we can get creative with that.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
thanks
thank
again,
you so much
Trevi
for
Ann.
having me, Dwight. And one thing I also wanted to say is we are hoping to venture out, have another practice area, which is doing trademarks. So I know a lot of immigrants, when they're making their transition, given the virtual world that we're living in, they also have small businesses. And so we do want to foster growth and help immigrants, and even if you're not an immigrant, to register your business as a trademark too, so to protect against infringement on other businesses, whether it's a logo, your name, things of that nature. So that's also something to look out for from a la carte legal services.
Yes, that's where I come in. I'm one of the first clients because I need I need to copyright a few things, specifically that logo up in the top corner over your head.
Right, which is a
Yes,
nice
yes,
logo.
yes. I paid a lot of money for it.
Wow.
So I need to trademark it.
So you
So
definitely should. Yeah, protect
yes,
it. Yeah.
yes, as well as other business ventures.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't want another attorney. You know what I mean? I need no other body.
Right.
Thanks again, Trevi Ann. I know you have a consultation right now. For sure. Guys, if you haven't already, go ahead and like the video. Let me know in the comment section if you have any questions. Again, Trevi Ann's information will be there. If you haven't subscribed, like the video, do the right thing. I'll see you on the other one.
Share, subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe to me.
Right.
All right, guys. Peace.
Bye.
See you on the other one.